And we're sitting down with Dr. Gail Gottlieb once again, and I understand you just made it back from China for another trip out there. Tell me how that went.
It went really, really well. There's just so much opportunity for Acadia in China. Being first in Maclean's is huge in China.
Is it?
Yeah, being first in anything is huge in China because with billions of people, it's very hard for anyone to be number one. So when you get that kind of recognition, it means a great deal. So we were paired up with two of the top universities in China, and they are interested in faculty exchange. They would like to send students here. They would like our students to come there. Of course, they're huge, and they don't realize just how small Acadia is. Even if we give the numbers, I mean, they've got 20, 30,000 students and thousands of faculty, and we're saying, well, so they said, for instance, we'd like you to send 3 of your computer science faculty to teach here next year. And I said, well, we only have 8, so it would kind of cripple the program if I sent 3 of them to China for the year. But there's also just tremendous interest in students coming here to study. And China's taking an entirely different approach with language now. In the past, some of the students who came really didn't have the English ability to function well at the university level. But the students we met on these 2 trips just speak English beautifully. They've passed the tests. They're really ready to study in English, and they're top grades in China. I mean, people with 95s and 98s, and it's not easy to get 95s and 98s in China. But we came back with another 25 applications this time.
Oh, wow.
And we were able to accept about 30 students while we were there to give them their acceptances. So it was a very good trip for us.
Were you working on the same partnerships you sort of forged last time you had your trip to China?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we went back, but we also added some schools. There's a school in Shenzhen that's a Canadian school, and there were 7 students there who were interested in applying to Acadia, and they're learning the New Brunswick curriculum. So they're learning in English, they're learning the New Brunswick curriculum, so it would be very easy for them to come here. So we were happy to accept their applications.
Well, the Asian market is definitely a huge market that Acadia ought to be tapping into, and that's really good. As we look into the future for Acadia's future, what are some other areas or markets or directions that Acadia should be looking at to take us into the future?
Well, I mean, the problem in Canada is that the number of 18-year-olds is falling. So I think one of the things Acadia, which has traditionally been an undergraduate institution, one of the things Acadia needs to look at is what other possibilities are there. Do we want to remain primarily undergraduate, or should we be adding more graduate students? But graduate students come at a cost. So any of these decisions have to be made with an understanding that it's not a simple thing to do. When graduate students come, they need fellowships. Well, if we're going to take more graduate students, then that comes at an increased cost. Ideally, there should be students for at least a couple of years of the traditional age in Ontario. So we want to be putting a press on in Ontario. There are still excess of students in Alberta, so we want to put a press on there. But the depressing thing is that overall the number of 18-year-olds in Canada is going to start falling. So we do, I think, have to look beyond Canada to international markets. The Northeast in the United States, unfortunately, is suffering from the same demographic slump that Canada's got. So then the question is, where in the United States? And people are afraid of Canada, even in China.
Afraid?
Of the cold.
Oh, yeah.
Canada's image is the frozen tundra, and people are ignorant. And I mean, so we were in a city in China that has no central heating. It was freezing. It was literally 33 degrees. I mean, just
Fahrenheit,
yeah. 1 degree above zero. And we were visiting a school with 5,000 students. There's no heat in the classroom. There's no heat in the residences. And they're telling us that they're afraid to come to Canada because it's cold in Canada. And we're going, man, we've never been so cold in our lives as we are here.
They just didn't have the infrastructure for that.
They don't have the infrastructure, and they're getting weather that is unexpected. But they have no concept of what it's like in central heating. And so they're seeing the snow and all, and it's as if they'd be sitting in a classroom without any heating with snow outside, which they were then. And so we're trying to explain to them. But similarly, from the U.S., there's a huge flow of students from the Northeast to the Southwest. And similarly, if you try to recruit students in Florida, they're going, oh, it's too cold. We don't want to go. We don't want to go north. We like the warm. So it's like human beings are going back to their roots. We originated in Africa where it was warm, and then these hardy travelers went up to Scandinavia and eventually over to Canada.
Maybe that's a market, the Scandinavian market.
Maybe the Scandinavian, but probably they're trying to head south too. I don't know. It's like everybody's getting to be wusses in terms of their fear of the cold. Now that we have the technology to deal with the cold, everyone wants to head back south anyway.
Yeah, well, it is snowing again today, but it's kind of nice.
But it's comfortable here.
Now, your tenure here is coming to a close. Next week will be...
My last week.
Your last week.
Yes.
What type of leader, president, do you think this school needs to take us into the future? Who should they be looking for?
That's a good question. And Canada is at a difficult place. With unionized faculty, I know we don't want to talk about the strike, but with unionized faculty and fixed costs as high as they are, and for Nova Scotia, a government that is not prepared to support the institutions, but at the same time caps tuition. Whoever the person comes, whatever person comes and takes this job, and it is a wonderful school, but they are going to be dealing from day one with extraordinarily difficult problems. And we see our problem as an enrollment issue, but in fact it's not just enrollment, because there aren't enough students in Canada for us to get the enrollment that we need to pay the faculty what the faculty contract demands, to pay Emira what the oil demands to heat the place, to keep the campus at the state of attractiveness and cleanliness that it is. Our fixed costs are just huge. And it's almost like a rat running or a gerbil running on a wheel as fast as they can just to stay in place. So you're going to, I think, still need a leader who wants to deal with the reality of the situation. And unfortunately, people don't want to hear reality. People, I think, prefer to hear promises. They want to hear promises that the sun will come out tomorrow and good times are just over the next rise. I remember Jimmy Carter, when he was president in the U.S. in the middle of the oil crisis in the 70s, and he went on TV wearing a cardigan and sitting in front of a fire and said, people need to sacrifice. People need to cut back on their oil use. We've got a crisis here in terms of oil. And he was tossed out. The Americans did not want to hear that. They elected Ronald Reagan, who said there's mourning in America. Good times are straight ahead. And Reagan ran up the debt to untold levels, ran up the national debt. And sadly, I think that's what people do want to hear, that happy days are here again, that good times are coming, and everything will be better. And that may be the type of leader they want to choose.
We want to believe that. We want to believe that there's still a way to look at the positive and to move forward in a positive way, but there is a reality there, isn't there?
Well, I think Acadia is well positioned to move forward. I think things like the Learning Commons and the support systems that is going to put in place for faculty and students, the internationalization piece of that. I think that the biology building, which was desperately needed for health and safety reasons, not just for aesthetic reasons, will position a strong program to remain strong and even get stronger. Acadia is well positioned to do many things well, but the 300 extra students that came during the double cohort are gone. And Ontario is not going to graduate an extra 300 students again. Thank you very much. And the town accommodated those students with pleasure. The town built and expected that to continue. It couldn't continue. It couldn't. But nobody wants to hear that. And so, in terms of a leader, I think they need someone who will build on Acadia's strengths. But if Acadia is to survive, they absolutely have to have a clear vision of what are our strengths and what are our weaknesses, and how can we build on our strengths and how can we minimize our weaknesses. And I hope they will find someone who can do that.